Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to Parents Supporting Parents. I'm thrilled to have Vicki Gallen Clark and team online as she talks about going from my mind, Vicki. but, but I know you're going to be blessed. Folks, you all have to forgive me. I'm getting gray, as you see, so I forget these topics sometimes. But we're going to be talking about how to support your children. And so right now, I'm going to bring on live Vicki and team. Vicki, you are live.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. We all have those moments. As Pastor Williams said, my name is Vicki Gallen Clark, and this is the fifth in a series of parents supporting parents. We've had some very thought-provoking conversations as parents have shared their hearts and shared what has worked and what has not worked with them. And so tonight we are going to be discussing discovering my child's passion and encouraging creativity. And as we go along, if it wasn't important to you before, by the end of this session, you will be saying, wow, what can I do to support my child in these two areas? So tonight I'm joined by two lovely young ladies. They've been with me before, and they're back again because I've admired over the years how they've handled their children, and one being a grandparent as well, has handled other people's children when it comes to a child's passion and creativity. So I would like to welcome them, and please help me join me in welcoming them. And so Naisha, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just talk about the most important role of being a parent, how many children you have, their ages, and then Claire, if you can do the same thing.
Thank you, Vicki, and guests. It is a pleasure to be here again and talking about these wonderful topics. And this one is really, really a fun topic, passion and creativity. I am a mom of quite a large family. I have actually 4 biologically of my own, 2 that are young in the home right now that I'm raising. They are elementary aged, 10 and 11. But I also have grown kids, and I share a blended family with my husband, Stan McCauley. And so we have a large group of all age ranges, from smaller kids to older kids. But we're having fun. Definitely with the diverse ages in different stages of life. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Naisha. Clara.
Okay, I just want to say I'm glad to be back on, and I was looking forward to presenting along with Naisha tonight. And I am married to Richard Ruffin. We've been married 52 years, and I am the proud mother of Dr. Richard Ruffin and Dr. Vernon Ruffin. And if I could just say that at one time, I remember, I never expected that we'd have 2 doctors. But after the guys came out, turned out pretty well, I said to my husband, I said, baby, you know what? I wish we'd had more children. I said, because then just think of what could have happened in terms of our lives and the lives of others. And so the camp that we have enabled us to have more children. And so to encourage them in areas of creativity and in the academic area. So it's like, I'm so sorry. It's like I have a lot more children than Naisha does.
And so Claire is talking about their camp. It's a summer camp called Hartford Friendship Kids Camp. And we can actually post on our Facebook and also on our website information about that camp, and also Claire's information. So every year, we're talking about how many years, Claire, now?
This is now 18 years.
Wow. So you can know the number of children that she's mothered, that she's been a parent to over 18 years. Yes. So again, we'll make sure that we put that information up there for the Hartford Friendship Kids Camp. So ladies, I'm going to date myself intentionally. When I was growing up, so I have 6 siblings. We lived out in the country. We played with things like boxes, cardboard boxes, and they became our houses and forts and things like that. We played with the inner tube was taken out and we had tires, rubber tires, and we would take them and roll and get inside and roll down the hills. We played with things like stones, and stones became our markers for hopscotch or marbles and things like that. What's happening well, first of all, what is creativity? How would you define creativity? And what's happening with our children when it comes to creativity? So who wants to jump in first? Claire, jump in.
Clara?
Okay, I'll jump in. You know what? I think that creativity occurs as a matter of necessity. It is something that fights boredom. It's taking what you have, utilizing what you have, mixing it with your imagination, and having fun doing it. I don't know what has happened to that area. You know, it's like everybody is so tuned into technology that it has robbed some of the kids of their creativity, their ability to sing. They don't feel like doing that, or to draw, or to paint, or to write. We see those things as dwindling. You know, it's kind of like dwindling. I want to tell you something. I think that probably, Vicki, you were rich to have those things. Myself, we had a Coca-Cola bottle. We would stick some corn silk in the hair to make the hair, and that would be a doll. And we would talk to the doll, and the doll would talk to us, and that was being creative. It was a way of utilizing what you had to do something else beyond, over, you know. And so that is what part of the creativity was for me as I was growing up. And so I still, I've shown, my husband and I have both shown the children, especially when they were young, that we're productive, that we're not people who would just sit in front of the television set. We were always doing something, and we were encouraging them. If they were drawing something or if they were writing something, we didn't put them down. We encouraged them to do that. You know, you kind of have to do that, or you'll have kids that are just vegetables sitting in front of a tube, you know, that kind of thing.
Naisha, what is creativity, and do you think it's missing? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Clara said is right on. Well, all of what she said, I agree. And creativity is the imagination at work. It's being able to see something and create something that's not there yet. You know, like you kind of have to reach for a vision of a thing that doesn't even exist yet. And one of another key word that Clara said, it's really born out of boredom. And I think the reason why we're seeing it dwindle is because we're not allowing kids to be bored. We think somehow that is a bad thing and that we should be entertaining them all the time. And that actually robs them of their ability to imagine and create, because we think we need to entertain them. And so they don't get bored. Like if a child says they're bored, we automatically try to find something for them to do. And they should probably just sit with that boredom for a little while, and they'll figure out something to do eventually, but because the juices will start to flow. But we rob them of that opportunity by immediately responding to that question or that statement of like, I'm bored.
And you know what? I hear it all the time from children. You know, I have a 6-year-old grandson and a 3-year-old granddaughter, and he'll say, I'm bored. I'm thinking, wait a minute, he's 6 years old and he's coming up with this. And then the 3-year-old will hear him and she'll say the same thing. So why do we, and I've never heard someone say, let them sit with that boredom. I think that's a great strategy. Do you think it's just where children are hearing other children say they're bored, or do you think that they're really bored?
It could be both. They could really be bored. It doesn't necessarily come easy. Some kids have a very active imagination, and it doesn't take much for them to start, like the corn stalk. Like it doesn't take much for them to look around their environment and create something. But not everyone has it. It's like a muscle. Not everyone has it immediately, and so it takes a little bit to nurture it, and sometimes it is just sitting with it, but maybe there are other things. Clara also is not only the proud mother and wife, but she's an educator as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm and so I'm sure you whipped out a strategy or two.
I like everything that you've said. I love everything that you've said. And I agree with Vicki that we don't have to cater to the kids immediately. I find that creativity is sadly lacking because kids want to be like everybody else. They want to be the clone of everybody else. And so they will look at a clip on television and they'll see a dance step and then they'll do that dance step, but they won't create their own. They won't do their own thing. It's almost like they're restricting themselves to do that. Or you get them to write. It's hard to get the kids to write, but once they have written something and you look at it and you say, wow, this is awesome. That lights a fire. Or if they draw something, that lights a fire because, we just have to watch our words, the words of encouragement, because they are looking at it a certain way until they respond to the words that we use. I never would have thought of doing it or saying it or expressing it that way. I see it all the time. There are kids who don't want to dance because they don't dance like that kid over there. They don't move exactly the same way to the music, or they don't even know that they sing, that they don't even have a voice. They don't realize the voice that they have. And that with something else, a little bit of encouragement, that thing could be a beautiful gift to them as well as to others around them.
Wow.
So I think the fact that we are creative ourselves, and Naisha, I like the way that you have let your children be a part of Stan's world. They are learning something. It's a job, their dad's job, but it's something that they can step into. And it wouldn't take a whole lot of effort. And I bet you money that as good as he is, they could be better. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, I think it was the oldest out of the two is 7, right?
7. Yes.
So 7 used to come. Stan was taping for us in our different projects, and he was carrying her in her carrier, the little baby carrier. So she was exposed early to that whole creative world. So I do like that. But I want to come back to, so in preparing for tonight, I was reading an article and it says, as we age, somehow we start censoring ourselves, our creativity, and then other people start censoring our creativity. And I want to show you 2 clips of a very short film that really it just impacted me so much. So hold on, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to show you the clip and then I'm going to ask you to respond. So hold on.
I like the way that you have let your children be a part of Stan's world. They are learning something. It's a job, their dad's job.
Okay, I have it now.
They can step into, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of effort.
And I'm going to put the sound on.
They could be better. Do you know what I mean?
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
The father's getting ready for work. The son is all bubbly and enthused. He's going to school. So you see the adults are lacking enthusiasm and passion, right? There's a certain way you have to do those ABCs. You cannot wait to leave work. So his son's enthusiasm is contagious. It brings life back to him. Now I want to show you, because I'm going to skip. I'm going to fast forward. Every day this happens. The son is enthused and he brings life back to the father. But then watch what happens over a course of time. I think it's 409.
Oh.
He puts his hand up, he has his book back, he's accepted the routine. So I'm going to stop there. So day after day, his father would pick him up from school and he was just excited until it finally got to him. All the days that he was corrected to write like this. No, you can't put pictures on this. No, you have to sit like this. No, you have to be in line with everybody else. The son, the little boy, lost his enthusiasm, his zeal, his passion. And so he came out just like the father leaving work, just dragging his feet, like everything was sucked out of him. And that for me was so profound. And so my question to you is, what do we do as schools? What do we do as parents to really take away the passion and creativity for our children? I'm going to dig deep into this and then come out with strategies. But I can't just sugarcoat this or gloss over it because it's happening. So what do we do as parents, and what do we do as schools? What do the schools do to zap that passion and creativity? So talk to me before we start talking about strategies. Let's talk about the problem.
It sounds like, I don't know, Naisha, if you want to respond first, but it just sounds like a cookie cutter kind of thing. The children, okay, in order for you, as teachers are evaluated, I'm a former teacher, someone comes into the room and they want to see a structured class. They want to see an attentive class. They want to see students sitting forward, facing the whiteboard or whatever, the smart board. They want to see what looks like productive work being done. And something is taken away from the very atmosphere when you have that kind of structure. when kids have to act a certain way, there's no fun, there's no laughter in it. It really is sad. And seeing that clip really made me sad,
It did.
Vicki.
Mhm.
It made me
really
so
did.
sad because
It
that
impacted
is not the way I want to go down. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not going to do it like that.
Yeah.
But there, you look to see what is expected. I think the children want to see what's expected. There should be joy, the joy of learning, the joy of experimentation, the joy of doing nothing sometimes, doing something sometime, not being tied to the technology. I don't know. But I do know that teachers have been evaluated based on not just the test results but also on the conduct of the children. And if they're moving about a whole lot, if it's unstructured, or if it appears to be unstructured, a teacher can receive a poor evaluation as a result of that.
So it's looking at the system of education,
Yes.
taking a closer look at that and how it relates to creativity.
Yeah. I think also, you know, you open the show with like, what is your definition of creativity? So if we look at the problem through that lens, it's also the definition of creativity, because what parents and our school system will sometimes do is try to define creativity for the student. So like that picture or that painting, like in the video, the teacher couldn't even appreciate that he was doing the alphabet. It was there, the letters were there, but the teacher couldn't appreciate this creative flair, you know, like our definition of Clara had mentioned earlier about like, if you created your own dance step, someone could come along and criticize that and say, well, that's not the way you do ballet, or that's not the way you do hip hop. And then all of a sudden they define this thing and you don't fit it. And that zaps that light from you. And you'll never get on stage again. And that happened to me in high school. We had a talent show, and Queen Latifah was popular at the time. And so I was going to do a Queen Latifah rap. Mm-hmm. And I went up there and I auditioned and I sat back down, and a friend of mine, he wasn't really a friend, but the kids that you were in class with, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, what was that? Or something like that. He was like, "What is that?" And that just shut me down. I didn't even go through with it. I just went home and walked away and never attempted to do it again. And I think that's what also happens is people zap your energy from you too, if you don't meet their criteria or their definition of what beauty is or what creativity could be. It's not appreciated. And so that's a problem.
Yeah. Do you know, that reminds me of a time when I taught at Carmen Erased, and I would do the talent shows, right? Mm-hmm. And there was this little girl, skinny little girl, who she played the piano, and they had to try out for the talent show, etc. So she tried out, and I said, "Oh, that would be so great." She didn't have years and years and years of experience, but it was kind of cute what she did. And so when we had the assembly, and when it was just about her turn to come on, she stood behind the curtain and said, I'm not going on, because she was terrified. And I threatened her. I said, "Girl, yes, you are." And she came up there, and she was a little bit nervous. And her first, efforts were tentative. But by the time she finished, she had done so well. She got a standing ovation. That did a lot to increase her confidence. She felt really good about it, but she almost didn't do it because she was intimidated. She was fearful of how she would be received, And so there are some students who will shine academically, but there are some that will be very artistic. I
Mhm.
mean, an adult would have to look at that effort and say, you know, I really couldn't have done that. That is so out of the, you think out of the box. And that's what we want our kids to do. We want them to think out of the
Out
box.
of the
Many
box.
many of them will if they are encouraged to.
So
You don't
I
have
want to
to
stay
be.
on that.
I'm not like anybody
Yeah.
else.
I want to stay on that topic, Claire and Naisha, with the schools, because my oldest in elementary school, I would get these reports, not living up to potential, too talkative, not staying in his seat. And that continued throughout elementary school. And I knew my son was bright, very intelligent. And what I should have done was picked up on that right away. He would come home and I was saying, okay, now remember tomorrow you have to stay in your seat and you can't talk. And I was just going along with the teacher. Naisha, what would you said I think you said don't let the schools define how creativity fits your child or correlates with your child. As a parent, what can parents do if they know that they have a child who's very intelligent, who maybe they're just not stimulated at school, or maybe they're not challenged at school? What role can parents play with that whole thing?
Yeah, I think that that's such a great question, because that's usually how it will show up too. It shows up as a problem that the teacher can't handle, and now it's like it's a disciplinary problem. But it actually it's a lot of the things that we're talking about where this child is expressing themselves differently, and so um, it does require a little bit of exploration. You know, it's like the talkative child, like even that labeling that we do, right? Like um, that's a skill set. Like that's a public speaking skill set.
That's
Or
true.
like it's like flipping these things that we say are problems into opportunities, or into recognizing them for the skills that they actually are. So the exploring that means if you flip it, then how could that be put to use? So the child who can't sit in their seat gets a job. They have to replace all the pencils, or they have to, you know, turn it into the opportunity. And so instead of being a problem, it's like, well, if this child wants to run around, we're going to run you around today, and you're going to be the lunch carrier, or, you know, like turn it into like, and sometimes it means you have to help the teacher too. Like, so these are not deficits, like flip it into an asset, like say, like, you may see this as the worst of my child, but it's actually the thing that makes him the best at how I see him, you know, like that's leadership. And girls are labeled as bossy, but no, she's a leader, you know, like
You're
flip
actually
those things around.
I was going to ask you to share the verbiage that parents would use. So that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, take those things that are being, those labels that look like problems, and what's the positive or opposite side of that, the other side of the coin. So if this side of the coin is all the bad things about, like, can't sit still, talkative, what would be on the opposite side of that? Like, because as adults, um those are the things that we put to use. You know, politicians are talkative.
Mhm. Absolutely.
You know, that you have to be a talkative if you want to be successful as a politician or entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah.
so flip those things, look at them differently, and say, you know, and you can encourage those things and nourish them, you know, so that they're not deemed as like, this is a bad thing, but like, actually it's good. And let's see how we can, but it takes it, you as the parent have to do that, but you might also have to help the teacher, because honestly, teachers are not equipped all the time in looking at it from um, like the asset lens as opposed to a deficit.
So
Claire, I want to hear from you as an educator. What kind of conversation I could have had with my son's teacher
okay,
when I was getting all those notes?
okay. Let me respond first, Vicki, if you don't mind, as a parent.
No problem.
I would get those negative reports from my son, one of my sons in particular, and he would instead of walking, he would run. And one day I got a note telling me that he brought his lunch back from daycare because he didn't know how to walk as opposed to run, and therefore he was denied his lunch. And we were very, very upset. Now we knew not to co-sign what that opinion that the teacher had. There was no way that a teacher could say you don't deserve to eat lunch. So we had to confront that teacher, and I think she was fired as a result of it. But as he was in the lower grades, he would still do stupid things, crazy things. And I didn't have the wisdom to see it the way Naisha just explained it. Because I think that many parents, when they get a negative report, even if it's not a serious one, but it's still negative, they see it as a reflection of their efforts or their training.
Yep.
And therefore, instead of trying to flip it to see the positive out of the negative, they come down on the child.
Yep.
They might take something away from the child. They might find a way to punish the child. They might lecture the child. They might deny the child something. And so I've been that route. And so imagine my surprise when I discovered that my son really was a smart kid, both of them. I don't know where they got it from, but they were both and they did well. But at first, it was just really, really hard because I saw their behavior as perceived by that teacher as a negative reflection on the parenting that we were doing at home. So as a teacher, I think is a sad teacher is a bad teacher who cannot list some positives. Tell me the good things that you see in my child. Tell me that you see promise there. Tell me that, okay, he just needs to curb some behavior, but he has behaviors that are really good and are positive. He has a way, he has a role, he has meaning to the class. And so for anyone who is coming, if there is a situation, number one, what a good teacher does is at the beginning of the year, they let you know, look, I'm your child's teacher this year, but you're your child's first teacher. And what are the things that I can do that will work with your child? How does this child act at home? What are his favorite things? What are her favorite things? How can I get the best out of that child? Do you mind if I keep the child after school, not for a bad reason, but just to talk to your child, to get to know your child? And that's a way of beginning to appreciate the children. Listen, I'm not above a bribe at all. When the children, one time when we were being observed, children had taken a test in preparation for the CMTs that was popular at the time. When I was told what the test results were, I wasn't displeased with them, but I challenged the kids. I said, look, if you guys improve your score in the double digits, I said, I will treat you all to dinner. I'll take you out to dinner. We'll go to a restaurant. And there were so many in that class that improved just from that little bribe. They were just as happy to have the pizza party because I could not afford to take them to a restaurant. But things like that. If your child's teacher likes your child and communicates that, I don't like your behavior all the time, but I think you're just neat. That goes a long way to fostering something that is worthwhile, that will develop into something that we all want to see and encourage, I think.
I've never heard of, I wish educators were on this show tonight or listening to this show tonight, because I've never heard of a teacher interviewing the parent with the objective of finding out from that first educator, that child's first teacher, how can I best teach your child? Because you're the expert.
Right.
I've never heard that. To me, that's like a deal breaker.
Mm,
I think
mm.
every teacher should know that and practice that. I think that's awesome, Claire.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Don't you,
mm-hmm.
Naisha?
I do. It would change the entire relationship, you know, if that was the way both the adults in the room
Yeah.
went about it. But I agree, Clara. You know, not every it takes some practice and experience to get to a place where you understand that, because that's not you know, you don't you generally do take that kind of the view, you take on the view the teacher has kind of laid out. You do. And it does take, so hopefully with today's program we're interrupting some of that thinking, because no, I agree. I can't say I'm not without that same background in parenting, and just like trying to correct those behaviors, you know, and taking, you know, the child who doesn't sit still or seems unmotivated. I know that was my younger son. That was always the complaint about him. It was his motivation. And it was, but it also is, he's a laid back kind of guy. Like, he doesn't get excited about stuff. He just kind of like is an easygoing guy. And that was just something I came to accept about who he is. You know, not stop trying. Sometimes we're trying to change our children, or you know, have them be these other people, but sometimes it's just like, well, that's who he is. And it's okay. He's just, you know, he doesn't have, you know, this is how his approach to things is. So, you know.
So before we start,
as a teacher,
go ahead, Claire.
I was going to say that as a teacher, it took Thelma Dickerson, who created the Jamoki schools, you know, all of that. But as a new teacher trying to gain mastery of my class, trying to get the behavior that I thought the system wanted, I was of the impression, well, I said to her once, I said, you know what, I don't like that kid. And she looked at me and she said, why do you say that? I just, you know, he's disruptive of my classes. I have these plans, and this is what I want to accomplish. I'm not able to do it. She said, no, she said, I believe you like the student. You don't like the student's behavior. And it was like, wow, that is so profound. That was really a turning point in my approach to how I interacted with kids. I mean, after that, I could do anything with those kids. I brought so many home. They used to spend the night at my house. I mean, they were white, black, boys, girls. It didn't matter at all. But after I understood that there was a distinction between the behavior and the child, they're not one and the same.
Yeah.
So let's segue to parents then, Claire, because this is great. So if we as parents got that message that there's a distinction between my child's behavior and my child. So there's some things that I want you to tell parents stop doing, and I'll start. I want parents to stop saying, why can't you be more like your brother? I want them to stop comparing child to child to child. Laisha, what are some things that you want them to stop and talk to parents as it relates to that individual child's creativity and passion? What do you want parents to stop doing?
Definitely stop limiting the potential by, again, like that definition of what you think creativity or that expression. Stop limiting. It's like think outside of the box, like allow yourself to think outside of the box. And so don't be so critical
Yes.
as to shut down that child, because your criticisms cut so deep and they wound in such a deep way. And I think it's so because they're children and they are going to make mistakes. They're going to lines are not going to be straight, T's are not going to be crossed, I's not going to be dotted all the time, but let some of it just happen and be okay with it. That this is the learning moment, this is the growing stages. And so don't be so critical and to shut that fire down or to stamp out that light. Allow it to flicker, and it may not look the way you want it to look. That's the thing. Like you're looking for it to look the way you think it should look. But so stop looking for that and just let it be sometimes what it is. Let things let it flourish and nurture it. The creativity and the passion. Yeah.
Claire, what do you want? You've spent years observing interaction between parents and children. What comes to your mind as a message that you want to send to parents? Please, parents, stop doing this as relates to your child's creativity and passion.
Please, parents, stop being perfect. Stop imagining that you are perfect. Please, parents, don't stop growing. Please, parents, become an example of everything that you do is not necessarily gonna succeed the first time. Don't stop. Go outside of the lines yourself sometimes and talk with your child about it. Even ask your child, what do you think about this? Embrace your child. Let them know that your love for them is unconditional. Please. Let them know that, and that you're not going to judge them on the merit of this creative thing that they have tried to do and failed at, or because that failure sometimes is so subjective, and they're looking at it through the lens of somebody else's eyes. They don't want to. They don't want to be different. They don't want to experiment sometimes, and they will find someone, maybe not necessarily the right people, to encourage them to do something that violates what you have taught them, violates your values. So that your family has to be that nest that draws them. And I agree, stop being so critical, parents. Let them know, but this, that this is your first time doing this. What's going to happen the second time?
That's right.
It's all in how you phrase it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about strategy, your personal strategies in your household, Naisha, that you've used, that you see have worked with Seven, have worked with Nia, worked with your older ones. What strategies have you used so that your children can be free to be expressive, be creative, that they still have a sense of passion about them? What are some strategies that you could share with parents?
Definitely, when you described your childhood, I tried to do that same thing. Sometimes the box that the toy came in is the thing that gets played with more than the toy. So it's like the boxes, but having the kind of things that they can be allowed to play with, like the toilet paper roll. Like, don't throw the toilet paper roll away. Leave them, collect them, so that when kids get bored, there's a pile of toilet paper rolls that can become a castle. Like, so, and I'm saying that too, like, you don't have to have a lot of money. It's toilet paper rolls, it's paper plates, it's pasta noodles, it's all of these things that you probably already have at home. Just make them available for the kids to use and play with, is something that I've done. But the other thing I think is really important for parents, and something that I do, is sometimes they just want you to also join in. So get on the floor and dive in. And you know, and this may help for kids who don't have as much of an imagination. Get on the floor and spark something up. You know, if your kid's not coming up with kind of like, they don't see the corn stalk becoming a doll, get down with them and start it and say, oh, look, this looks like a doll to me, and start dressing it up. And then the kid will join in eventually, and join in and have fun. But sometimes that's what it takes too. So get in there and play too.
You know what? When you say get on the floor with them, my two youngest grandchildren, they want me to get on the floor with them. They lay out a blanket. Come on, mama. Let's go on a picnic. And that's for me to get on the floor with them and have a picnic with them. That's, you think that I bought them like $1,000 toy or something like that, but they do want me to get on the floor with them. So you're saying it's so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. Claire, what are some strategies that have worked throughout the years with you at the camp with your own children?
Well, one of the things that we did, that my husband and I did when the kids were really, really small, around Christmas time, we would have toys under the Christmas tree. And then before Christmas, maybe 2 or 3 days before Christmas, they could each pick one little thing from under the tree. And they knew that they could pick only one thing. And they were so excited about that. And whether it was a little racing car, something, one of those little cars that you propelled with your hands, you know, they loved that. And they used their imaginations and their creativity like you would not believe. We did that by accident, but it was so successful that we thought that was just really a good strategy. We started small and we gave them a little something. They saw all the gifts wrapped under the tree and everything, but they were allowed to do a little something. And so that was really profitable, I think, for them. The question was, what was the question, Vicki? I'm sorry.
What strategies have you implemented in your own home or the camp to really encourage the passion, encourage the creativity?
Well, you know, in the camp, we do have the creative writing. We let them make their own books. We encourage them to maintain diaries or whatever they want to. They can write anything they want to without judgment. It doesn't have to necessarily even be graded. They don't want anything to be, if they don't even want it to be read necessarily, you know, or if it's private, then you honor that. Just to go along with them, to let them know that we're just there with them and not trying to judge them. And as a matter of fact, when they do try, well, not now, but at one time when they would try something, we would try to imitate them, you know, some dance steps, which we couldn't do, you know, still can't do it. I'm still stuck on some dance from about 20 years ago. I still can't do it. And the way they would do their neck, I would think that my neck was about to fall off, you know, that kind of thing. It's just being with them, being a part of their lives, just being grateful that we are, you know, as I think Naisha and you have said so much about it. It's like, wow, I'm more of an audience listening to this wisdom, wishing that I had it.
I know.
But, so it's like, what are we talking about? And why am I on this end? You know?
No. Definitely value. What about television? I read that television actually decreases a child's creativity. What did you do, or what are you doing in your own home when it comes to television watching?
It depends. So I started watching PBS as an adult. Like my mom would watch PBS and I hated it. I was like, this is the most boring thing. These shows are horrible. But of course, as I became an adult, I started watching it. But they actually have really great programs on there that, and their motto, one of the philosophies is this PBS can expose you to a world outside, like you don't have to get on a plane and travel. Like this travel show is going to take you to Italy next week. So, or this cooking show is going to, so TV could be a good thing depending upon what you're watching. And so we have PBS on all the time. And so they do have children's programming, but we get into like the British baking show. We get into that. That's an exciting baking competition. We'll watch that, but we watch the travel guide and we talk about it. We talk about this, he's in Italy this week, or he's in Paris next week. We talk about it. We talk about, there's lots of scientific programming. And so, but we talk about them together. And so TV doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It's just what you're watching on it. And I would say, even if you are not watching PBS, but you're watching something else, talk about what you're watching. Even if it's the most dramatic, ratchet program on the planet, where it's like family drama, gossiping, talk about it. Like, talk about like what you think is happening in that situation. Like, and that is how to turn it from being a passive activity where you're just kind of passively sitting back, not doing anything, and consuming, to engaging, and it could spark a lot of other great family time and conversations. So it doesn't have to be bad. You can turn the TV watching into a good thing.
I incorporated the discussion.
Right.
Okay, that's good. So I'm going to give each one of you a minute. I can't even believe that we're almost at the hour. Passed by.
Yeah.
So Claire, give me a minute. What is the takeaway that you want parents to have as a result of listening tonight? Give a takeaway message.
Well, I would just encourage parents to look at their children and through the eyes of love, and to encourage them to know that what you're doing is so important. And whatever efforts they're trying to do, don't squash it, but to encourage them to write, to read a little bit more, to draw, to dance, to move about, to even exercise, to be more active in all of their activities, really. And as Naisha said, to talk, to speak, and to dare to experiment, but to be vigilant as parents, because there are some things that you really don't want them to experiment at a particular age. But to be young, parents, you've got to be young in your thinking and in your approach. And you've got to also be able to come close sometimes, but also to back up a little bit, to evaluate what you're doing and what you're thinking and how you're contributing to. You want to always be, well, I think my time is up, but you always want your child to invite you into their world.
Wow.
So that's, be a positive example. Love them. Just love them through it all.
Look at them through eyes of love. Naisha, what is the takeaway you want parents to have?
Yeah, I second that emotion and everything Clara just said. And I think I would add to encourage creativity and passion is sometimes exposure to some things, and the not being critical is so important in order to encourage it and nurture it, because it always doesn't show up the way that we think it's going to show up. But if we encourage the exploration, but within bounds, like not, but and exposing your kids to different types of art and expression too. The more exposure kids get to different mediums of what people do for a living, like talk to your kids about, there's all different kinds of jobs. There's no good jobs or bad jobs. What makes you happy? And if a child says, well, I don't like the play the piano, or I don't like the violin, or I don't want to play soccer. Explore that feeling a little bit, dig deeper to understand it, because you may find that it's not the actual soccer that the kid hates, but he hates not being picked first or something like that. Like, just don't let it, like, just explore things a little bit. So those are,
There could be something behind that.
behind it. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, ladies, thank you so much. I've heard look at your child through eyes of love. I heard all these household items to leave around and let them play with it, exposing them. If they're going to watch TV, talk about what they just looked at. Have that, let that be family dialogue and time to talk to them, exposing them. Be careful about the words we use, because your words can encourage them or shut them down. So this has been a rich conversation. I'm encouraging parents, and if you know of other parents who missed it tonight, have them go to hopesdatv.org to look at this and to take notes from this. They can go right to the website and look at this. So thank you, ladies. I have the highest regard for you. I really just thank you for taking an hour of your time on this beautiful day to spend with me. I think it was a rich dialogue, and I know that parents will be blessed. Pastor Williams, we'll turn it back over to you. Don't forget, next Tuesday, same time, 6 o'clock, right here, as we look at positive discipline. Pastor Williams.